Hey, everybody, we're live here at DisrupTV. I'm here at McCormick, if you've been here in Chicago. And of course, with my amazing co-host, co-founder, Vala Afshar. And of course, we're here with Elle, our producer, and our incredible guest. So we introduce everybody in reverse order. We ask them where they're coming in from, and of course, what we're going to be talking about today. And then we go live. So, Henry, where are we coming in from?
We're coming in from southern Arizona today, Ray. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
How's the temperature? Did it rain? Are you okay?
It did. Last night we had a pretty profound monsoon, so we were very happy with that because we're short on rain this year.
There you go. Something for the Saltwater Project. Pretty cool. All right. Natalie, where are you coming from? What are we talking about?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm in Philly, go Birds, and we are going to be talking about human-centered ways to approach work in a time of AI and ubiquitous technology.
I grew up in Allentown, where my weed is ice, pretzels, and of course, we'll have to argue about which cheesesteak. All right, Mike, where are you coming from? What are we talking about?
Hey, Ray, Lake Sunapee, New Hampshire, and still in denial that summer's over, getting out wake surfing, and we'll talk about whatever you want to ask.
All right, we'll get a clam bake in there somewhere too while we're around here. So anyways, very cool. Back to you, Elle. We'll kick it off.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on X at DisrupTV Show. Send us your questions. We'll do our best to answer them live. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wang. He's the CEO, founder of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. He's a regular television contributor on Fox Business, Bloomberg, CNBC, and he's a highly influential and trusted futurist on X at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thanks a lot. It's my favorite part of the week, hanging out with my co-founder, Vala Afshar, the Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce. He's also the author of multiple books, including Boundless, a new mindset for limited business, and #1 bestseller. And we're going to talk about his latest book, Autonomous, which is going to be even bigger. So, but executives around the world gather together with him, talking when he gives inspirational keynotes around the world. You're following his tweets, his insights, and more importantly, you can see him speaking on business TV outlets such as Bloomberg, ABC, and other major outlets. And guess what? You can catch all his insights on a weekly basis from this show on ZDNet in one of the biggest and most popular columns on that site. So with that, let's go to our guests. It's not about us. It's about our amazing folks who show up on the show every week. And who do we have to kick it off?
Ray, it's an honor. Our first guest is someone who I admire deeply. Mike Hayes, Managing Director, Insight Partners, and author of a new book that just came out this month, Mission Driven, The Path to a Life of Purpose. Yes, you're holding it up. I don't leave my house without it either. So yeah, absolutely. Mike is Managing Director of Insight Partners, a global software investment firm with 90 billion plus in regulatory assets under management, with 800 plus portfolio companies across every stage of growth. Prior to Insight, Mike was Chief Operating Officer at VMware, where he led the company's worldwide business operation, their SaaS transition, and their successful acquisition into Broadcom for nearly $100 billion. Mike spent 20 years in the US Navy SEALs, where his career began as one of 19 graduates of a class of 120. Now, his last job in the Navy was commanding officer of SEAL Team 2, which included 10 months as a commander of 2,000-person Special Operation Task Force in southern Afghanistan. Mike was selected as a White House Fellow and served 2 years as Director of Defense Policy and Strategy at the National Security Council. Mike has served for 2 presidents, President Bush and the Obama administration. Mike's military decorations include the Bronze Star for Valor in Combat in Iraq, Bronze Star for Afghanistan, and Defense Superior Service Medal for the White House. Now, most importantly, he's the author of best-selling book, Never Enough. This book was actually chosen by DisrupTV as one of the top 10 books of the year. And all of the profits of this book went to a 501c3, which was started by Mike, to pay off mortgages for Gold Star widows. This book alone has paid for home mortgages of 12 Gold Star widows. Imagine what this book is going to do. All the profits of Mission Driven will also go to the 1162 Foundation that pays off, again, the mortgages of Gold Star families. An incredible thing that you're doing, Mike. Welcome back to DisrupTV, and congrats on, well, this was one of my favorite books of all time, and this is about to become on that short list.
You're too kind, Vala. It's such a pleasure to be back with you and Ray, 2 of my absolute heroes. You know what they say in life is hang out with people who are smarter, better, and faster and stronger than you, and you become the same. And spending time like this, you guys certainly pull me up, and it's a real fun time to spend time together.
Not at all, dude. You're the one who set the standard. And of course, you talk about, that life of purpose, right? It doesn't just fall in your lap. You have to earn it. And it starts with that first point you talk about who, and I think I want to start there. Let's start from your book, really talking about this question of who, because why is who the foundation for what?
Well, Ray, let's even step one more. You heard I spent time in DC, so I know how to not answer the question I was asked.
This has been great. Let's go to the next question.
No.
Just kidding. That's
I'll
awesome.
start one more step to the left. If you think about it, all we're trying to do in the world is elevate people and societies and make this place better than we found it. And I really deeply believe, just like I'm sure all of your audience does, technology is really one of the best ways, if not the best way, to elevate society. As you heard in the introduction, I've lived a varied life. I like to describe it as, hundreds of once in a lifetime opportunities. And I feel very privileged to have had some really unique experiences. And one of the things that I think about is that the most important thing is purpose. We've all hired a lot of people over our careers. I think of hiring in really just like 3 circles. It's what gives you energy, what are you good at, and then what does the business need? By definition, if I'm the hiring manager, I kind of know what we need because I'm hiring for it. When I talk to a candidate, just like we all do, everybody knows what they're good at, and we are good at inflating that too. The harder circle is what gives you energy. And what I found in life is the more you can align like your energy and your purpose with your mission and what you're doing, then it's not work.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
That makes a lot of sense.
In both books, and when I met you in person, you've said in the SEALs we have, we say a person dies 2 deaths. One is physical, and the other is the last time anyone on earth says their name. You personally work very hard to never forget to keep, great teammates in mind in small ways, and keep their memories and their accomplishments alive. And so you ask yourself, and you ask of others, who will keep your name alive when you're gone? Every day, can you do something to expand that list? That's tremendous advice. So I'm going to ask you, what's the best advice you ever received? Who shaped the way you think? Who shaped the man that you are? Someone who's jumped off buildings, someone who had to amputate a fellow SEAL's leg, someone who's led 2,000 men and women in the toughest conditions you can ever imagine. Who helped shape the man that you are?
Well, many people, Vala, but I'd have to start with my grandfather. My grandfather was at Pearl Harbor that fateful day, December 7th, 1941. And he told me things like, hey, Mike, when you're down and you're having your roughest day, the best way through that is to go find somebody who's having a harder day and help him or her. And he said things like, Mike, don't die for your country, go on living for it. And one of the things that I'm trying to get out there is we're Americans, we're not Americans. And so in this current state of division or noise or whatever it is, like purpose transcends all of that, and that's really what can unite us. And so, that impact that he had on me was profound. But one of the stories I tell in Mission Driven was a story one time. I'll try not to get choked up, but the reason I became a SEAL was because of a guy named John Connors was killed on the runway at Paitilla Airfield in 1989. I never met John, but I was privileged to be at his memorial service in the church at Holy Cross College where I was attending. And, about maybe 2 years ago, there was a fundraiser where they're building a statue for John in his hometown of Scituate, Massachusetts. This is a black tie event right next to the USS Constitution in Boston, which Vala better than anybody. You have like 10 keys to the city, and black ties everywhere. Everybody's important. We've all been at these kinds of things. And I was at that podium and I looked at table number 1 and I saw Mrs. Connors and John's siblings. And the aha moment that I had was that we all help people, but the acid test for impact is who have you helped, who you didn't meet. And I said, Mrs. Connors, I never met John, but he impacted me, and I wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for your son. Wow. And that's what I think about having impact. You guys have written books, and these are like that's what it's about is impacting something much larger than self.
Well, that's a great point, right? And really, help others. And that's one part in your book where you talk about helping others. The part that confused me at first reading through the book was, why did you talk about the short game? We often think about the long game, where you do all the planning around it, and you jump straight into the short game.
Yeah. So, Ray, you asked me a minute ago about the who is the most important thing. Our daughter's 24 now. And when she was growing up, we never said to her, what do you want to be when you grow up? We said, who do you want to be? Because the who is your character. It's your ethics. It's your values, your morals. It's how do you want to treat people and all of the foundational things that make us human. And a lot of people identify with the what. You say, who are you? And they answer with, I'm a managing director at Insight Partners, or I'm the chief, whatever officer at some big important place. And the thing is, those positions and titles come and go in life. Your who doesn't, your who is with you your whole life. So I think you really have to start with that who and think about what that means for you in your career and who you want to be.
And you also write that ambition is the concrete application of our who, but you have a cautionary note in the book, and it's that high-performing individuals sometimes fall into a trap when they act without having a crystal clear destination in mind. Can you talk about healthy ambition and when ambition can actually serve you well versus being ambitious without deliberateness or purpose in mind?
Vala, I think it's the question for all of us as professionals. When I was in grad school, I did public policy at the Kennedy School, and my econ professor said, hey, beware of fast trains to the wrong station. That stuck with me. The thing that I think about ambition is, what are you using it for? Like people could call me ambitious, and maybe I am, maybe I'm not. But the thing is, I am about impact. And I know that the bigger the platform is, the more you can impact people. And so the thing is, like, are you using it for good and impact, or are you using it merely for self-promotion? I think we all have pretty good antennas for over the long run of who is using that platform for good. Like every time I see either of you putting anything out on social media, all you're doing is elevating and lifting other people and helping them, honestly, like find and improve their who. And that's so, like, the world could say you two are ambitious. You've got one of the most important, consequential platforms with DisrupTV that you've built. Is that ambition? Is that about you? I know both of you, it's not. And so that's the thing to me that is like, what are you using it for is how you think about whether ambition is good or bad.
I'll tell you, I'm on these platforms. When I hear someone of your caliber connected and following myself and Ray, that's all the fuel I need to know that I'm on the right path, because some of these platforms were connected based on the quality of our ideas, not pre-existing relationships we've had in the past. So thank you for your kind words. You just fueled me for the next decade of sharing. So thank you.
And thank you for being part of this Power to Convene. What's one of the things that I think we really enjoy doing is just sharing folks and getting people to kind of connect with each other. And that's definitely one of those leadership traits that, like you just learn from watching other people. I mean, we learn it from a lot of folks. And you've done so many things, like watching other people, different things in your career. I mean, you were a part of the $69 billion Broadcom acquisition. I think some customers might not like you for that, but they loved you before. But you're part of SEAL Team 2. You're part of Inside Partners. You're an executive at Cognizant. You've seen the angle as a customer, a vendor, a system integrator, right? And now as an investor. What is that? How does that change your perspective when you walk in each time with a different kind of lens? Does that shape things differently? Does it change your relationships? Does it give you a level of context you didn't have before?
Ray, it absolutely does. I've been on both sides of the buy versus build equation: insource, outsource, product, platform, point solution, platform. Should the application estate be super tight, small, and simple, or should we just keep throwing new POCs in there? I've dealt with all of these on both sides, and I think being able to see 360 around a problem is a very unique opportunity that now I think it makes me better. But what I'll tell you is, look, I know myself. If you want to really get SME-ish on anything, I'm not your guy. Like I like to say, I don't play an instrument, I conduct bands. And so you name the instrument, I can find you somebody who can play that instrument. You name the instrument, there's millions of people better at every instrument than me. But I can kind of get them together and play that music. And so recognizing at this stage of your career what you don't know, I think is also a bit of a superpower. And so I'm under no illusion that I've never written a line of code a day in my life, but I call myself a technologist, and so how do you think that doesn't make sense to some people? But, I think it's about evangelism, to steal one of Vala's words.
You're the ultimate evangelist. I've actually seen you deliver keynotes, and I love your book. So you're truly the triple threat when it comes to evangelism. You mentioned your daughter, 24 years old, so clearly early in her career, or pursuing, graduate studies. I think about, and I don't know you well enough to say this, but I think about how emotional you must get when you meet any member of those 12 families of Gold Star widows, and the fact that you've paid their mortgages off. I can't think of a greater gift than financial freedom that comes from not having a mortgage. And I'm a father of 3. My oldest is 22. How do you guide your children to have the level of generosity and the level of impact that you've had? Those are big shoes to fill. How do you do that? How do you gently nudge your children to just be aware of who you are and what you've done? I have a 15, 19, and 22-year-old. So dad, is kind of cool, but I'm still trying to do my best to guide them. Mom is the trusted advisor in our household. So I'm wondering, you've done some extraordinary things, unicorn things. How do you guide your children to follow your footsteps?
Two answers to that, Vala. Number one is trying to set the example, and also leaving this. So life by example. That's what my grandfather did to me. My grandfather, my father didn't push me to do any single thing. And so I think it's also leaving the space for your kids to understand that they don't have the exact same gifts and abilities and interests and passions as we do. Our goal isn't for them to have a specific gift or ability or passion or interest. It's to have some. And I think that's one of the things that I really wanted to do with Mission Driven, was to help people understand that you just need to get off the sidelines and take ownership and accountability in your corner of this great nation and world and planet. And so some people want to, should be taking plastics out of the ocean or cleaning up the forest or Teach for America. But the thing that I love also is it's got to be humility. Mission Driven came out as number 4 on the top 150 books by USA Today, which is just pure sales numbers. And so in two of those ahead of me were fiction, which sells a lot more than nonfiction. And so I was having a great day about a week or so ago when I found out. And my daughter drew a picture of 3 people on a podium and me off to the side looking from the outside in.
You're never the king of your own kingdom. I'm telling you. That's awesome.
We're here with Mike Hayes.
Person I know to Captain America. So thank you for all that you do and who you are. Believe you me, impacts not only the people that know you firsthand, but many degrees of separation through the books, through your lectures, through just the fact that you're a community builder and giver. So thank you for who you are.
Well, thank
We're
you,
here with
gentlemen.
Mike Hayes, Managing Director, Insight Partners, and author of Mission Driven. If you buy this book, it's going to the 501c3 he founded, 1162 Foundation, pays off mortgages for Gold Star families. So please buy the book. And of course, it's going to good cause and get some wisdom out of it. Thanks a lot for being on the show. Happy Friday.
Mike,
Thank you, gentlemen. Love you guys. Take care.
Thank you. Just an extraordinary person, and he's even kinder in person. This is where we bring extraordinary best-selling authors to share their wisdom with us, and there's no exception here. Dr. Natalie Nixon, author of Move, Think, Rest, Redefining Productivity and Our Relationship with Time. Man, this is a perfect time for a book like this. Natalie is a creative strategist who happily integrates wonder and rigor into her life and work. Natalie converted a 16-year career as a professor into a successful consulting practice. Natalie is currently strategist CEO of Figure Eight Thinking. At Figure Eight Thinking, she advises and emboldens companies to transform their business results by applying creativity and strategic thought. Natalie's author of The Creative Leap, Unleash Curiosity, Improvisation, and Intuition at Work, and a regular contributor to Inc. magazine. Natalie's new book, Move, Think, Rest, Redefining Productivity and Our Relationship with Time, is what we're going to talk about in the next 20 minutes. She's ranked in the 2024 Thinkers 50 Radar cohort and one of the top 50 keynote speakers in the world by real leaders. Welcome, Natalie, to DisrupTV.
Thank you, Vala. Thank you, Ray. It's great to be here.
Hey, thanks a lot for being here. Call it a life hack or call it a rigid protocol. Tell us a little bit about motor. Why is that so important here in the book?
Well, I love that I'm following Mike, because when he said that the core mission driven calls people to ask the question, what gives you energy? Here's the thing, in a time of ubiquitous technology, unprecedented burnout, and new rules for remote work, the companies that will be able to attract and retain the best talent will be those that incorporate this new human-centered operating system to flourish, the motor framework, or Move, Think, Rest. And it really is an opportunity to help people to zoom out so they can identify what gives them energy. At the 30,000-foot level view, movement, thought, and rest is as follows. Movement is not just about exercising. Obviously, one should exercise, but it's really about thinking more in terms of movement hygiene. As humans, we're designed to move. The spinal cord is an extension of the brain, of the medulla oblongata, and when we're hunkered over a laptop all day long, it restricts blood flow and therefore restricts oxygen, and you actually aren't doing your best thinking or work. So movement is really key, and peppering that throughout the day and the week is really essential. Thought is not only about cognitive, rational clarity and being really quick on your feet in terms of thinking, but it's in what I call backcasting and forecasting. So backcast is your ability to hit pause and save time to reflect, to engage in memory, but also to forecast in terms of deep curiosity, audacious curiosity, dreaming, the role of imagination, and daydreaming, so that your cognitive rational thought can be crisper and actually more innovative. And then rest. What I'm not saying in the book is that every company needs to have a nap room. If that's your jam, if that makes sense in the culture of your organization, cool. But what I'm really talking about is intermittent resting. So I interviewed almost 60 people for this book, and a cohort of that interviewee pool were people who worked for companies where they took sabbatical. So I'm interested in scaling intermittent rest in terms of making sure you have micro breaks throughout the day. But what's the impact of longer term breaks and rest? I was influenced years ago by the memoir of Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, who wrote an incredible memoir called Let My People Go Surfing, where he, even back then, decades ago, had a macro management versus a micro management leadership and management style, which is fundamentally built on trust. So that's it in a nutshell. It's an operating system to help individuals, teams, and organizations flourish through intermittent rest, through backcasting and forecasting, and through movement hygiene.
I asked Mike to share best advice he was given. Was there any one particular person or individual in your life that helped you leave a successful academic career, a 16-year professor, to launch a company? That's an audacious, bold decision to make. And then to write best-selling books. Who's influenced you to make some big pivots in your life?
Yeah, I've made several leaps. I have a background in cultural anthropology. I worked in the fashion industry for the limited brands, then entered academia. Now I'm an entrepreneur. And like Mike, I have to go back to family. So when I was a sophomore in college, I had my first world existential crisis where I was trying to figure out what to major in. And I called home, asked my parents what they thought. I was trying to sound impressive and threw out things like economics and poli-sci and sociology. They knew me well, so they could tell I wasn't really into that. And they kept asking, well, what are you interested in? And finally, almost as a confessional, I confess, I really love anthropology, and these interdisciplinary courses in Africana studies are so cool because I can study philosophy and econ from these different perspectives. And almost at the same time, my parents said, that's what you should do. That's what you should study. And my dad said, Natalie, if you study what you love, you will have to turn down opportunities. No one will have to tell you to stay up later, get up earlier. And I want you to understand what a radical act that was. This is in 1989. I'm African-American. I was not looking into going into inheriting a trust fund at age 30 or 40. So these were two people who, in spite of, at most dinner conversations in the 80s, when I would go home, it was about study computers. These were two people who told me to follow my heart. And I know that's a controversial statement. And what it does not mean is that you'll never have to hustle. You'll never have to do jobs that you don't necessarily love. But that advice has carried me through. It's not always the easiest path, but it's definitely a much more efficient way to live, in my view.
Ray, I bet that wasn't the advice you received or I.
No, I didn't get that at all.
First-gen immigrant, I can tell you. Even today, my mom is like, when are you going to go back to school and become a doctor or earn a PhD? You know, anyway. So,
In 1989, I was supposed to go to med school.
Your parents, they're wonderful, wonderful people for the advice that they gave. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
I don't know if I should have gone to med school. That wouldn't have been good either. But hey, this is important when we talk about things around hard skills. We got to talk about soft skills. There's things that leaders really need to really motivate people in new ways. And we're the last generation of managers to have only managed humans. So it's going to be interesting as we look about what happens in a world of agents, the world of AI, how our automation comes into play, and really what that future of work looks like. So what are those soft skills? There are probably some core soft skills that you pull out in the book, and I know you did. So that we should be thinking about.
Yeah, well, I like to say that soft skills are hardcore. Soft skills such as collaboration, actively listening, curiosity, which actually leads to deep empathy, the ability to collaborate, the ability to negotiate. It's no accident that when we think about things like play, which is the ultimate motor skill, play actually accentuates all of those attributes. When you are at play, you must be engaged, you must be actively listening, deeply curious, you must negotiate, collaborate. So in a time where AI and so much incredible technology can take over basic tasks, the opportunity is to use that technology as a lever in order to accentuate what makes us uniquely human. And that is the most exciting part about what I'm calling the imagination era. I actually think we're not in the middle of a tech revolution. We're actually in the midst of a human revolution. We are kind of infatuated with the technology, but at the end of the day, the technology is a tool. And like so many different revolutions and pivot points in civilization, it's going to require of us as humans to show up very differently. And I think this is a time where human consciousness, the imagination, intuition, creativity are going to be needed to be developed even more significantly than ever.
Adding to what you're saying here, you have to make the creativity leap to get to this revolution.
Yeah, you do. You do. Thank you for making that bridge. Creativity is not woo-woo. Creativity is actually, as I like to say, the ability to toggle between wonder and rigor to solve problems and deliver novel value. So we have to stop thinking about creativity as only the creative types, or it's only something that artists are great at. Artists are exceptional at wrestling with the ambiguity of the creative process, but the best engineers and CFOs and executive assistants and farmers and teachers and plumbers and artists are super creative when they devote time and space for the wonder and for the rigor. That actually is the engine to be able to consistently innovate.
That's great.
I didn't have the other book, but I've got this one.
I think it was Albert Einstein who said, creativity is imagination having fun. And I know for sure he said nothing happens until something moves.
Right.
So let's talk about movement in business. How do you, as you advise leaders, how do they create an environment where they encourage and cultivate healthy movement? And what does that mean? Movement in the context of building a thriving, successful business or team or organization?
Well, again, it's really fortuitous that I'm following Mike Hayes with his stellar work and his background as a Navy SEAL. I believe that it is the Navy that has for decades had standing meetings. And what that does is it helps you to get to the point, helps you to get much more efficient. And actually, you literally are thinking on your feet. So one of the things that we can begin to do in our organizations is to question our assumptions about one of the oldest artifacts of all organizational culture, which is the meeting. And we can start there by trying to redesign the meeting. So incorporating standing meetings, questioning whether or not the meeting has to be on video or Zoom. Can it be a walk and talk meeting, either by phone or in person? Redesigning space. One of the other groups of people I interviewed for Move, Think, Rest were two of the leaders at A+I, a workplace architectural design firm. They did a really cool project with Publicis, where when I visited Le Truc in New York City, is one of the most biodiverse, dynamically, spatially designed workspaces I've ever seen, where you can literally kind of choose your own adventure, because they understood that cognitively space and environment matter. So if we want our teams, our employees to do their best work, we have to actually have diversity in the ways that the space is designed to prompt different sorts of thinking, whether it's collaboration or solo deep thought.
That's amazing.
Wow. We're seeing definitely a massive shift here, right? It's in terms of where organizations have to be, how they actually have to think. And, you talked about this so important areas, really thinking about work, leisure, motor framework. How does this tie back to productivity, well-being, mental health, our ability to recharge, and our ability to reinvent ourselves?
Totally. It has everything to do with our ability to recharge, to reinvent, to reframe. When you write a book, you learn so much. That's one of the cool parts about writing a book. There are a lot of hard parts about it, but that for me is a really great outcome. And we talk a lot in terms of executive leadership about mental clarity, mental fortitude. We talk about the importance of physical wellness and health. If you're a leader, some of the top executives get, health checkups with something like the Mayo Clinic. But what I learned is also the value and importance of emotional recovery. And I learned that when I interviewed Scott Tignum, who is one of the co-founders of a really cool executive performance coach business called his name is Scott Pelton, and the company is called Tignum. And that's where he really exposed me to this thinking about the role of emotional recovery in a time of erratic markets, the need to, in some cases, lay off a lot of people or observing a lot of your colleagues leaving. There's that emotional piece that really matters. And that is an essential dimension of productivity. In the book, I actually say we need to put productivity to bed. It's a relic of the first industrial revolution. GDP doesn't even measure things like search engines or email. We have to shift to a cultivation model, a model that measures both the solo practitioner and the collective, both when we have quick spurts of growth, but also slow. And also, yes, we should measure what we see, but we also have an acknowledgement that there's so much that's happening when we need to sleep on it, when we need things to percolate and marinate. So that both and model is a fundamental foundation of the motor framework.
I think about the advice that John Wooden, the great basketball coach, one of the winningest coaches in the history of basketball, I think he said, "Go fast, but don't hurry." In a culture where in the macho culture of, sleep in the cubicle and spend, work hard and the culture of effort. And you've got some of the most successful men and women speak about the rigor and putting in your time and paying your dues and all the language that supports the anti-rest thesis. How do you convince business leaders that this is a critical part of reaching your full potential? You can actually stunt growth by avoiding the necessary rest that's required for you to be creative, for you to experiment, for you to have a safe environment where people are not afraid of failure, they're afraid of blame. And often they can, if the effort is strong enough or is revealed enough, they can get a pass if they make mistakes or fall. Talk to us about how hard it is to convince leaders to focus on rest.
It's really hard because a lot of the time, by the time I'm brought in as an advisor, they've done all the SWOT analyses and all the traditional ways to measure success. They're ready to hit pause and reframe. And again, I have to reference the world of Mike Hayes. I'm pretty sure it's the Navy SEALs who like to say slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And the only way we can actually engage in true wonder and true rigor is by hitting pause and zoom out. It's really hard to wonder when you're going 80 miles an hour. And wonder is not, again, it's not woo-woo. Socrates said centuries ago that wonder is the root of wisdom. And a lot of the time when organizations think they're being rigorous, they're actually being rigid, which is very different. Rigor is adaptive. Rigidity is very fixed. And it says, we said we were going to do X, Y, Z, and we're going to continue down this path, even though all alarm bells are going off. So what I like to do is ask several questions when I sense that people are reticent to slow down. What's at risk if we don't make this change, if we don't hit pause? What's at stake? So to kind of paint a picture of the pain, but also to share some great examples of the value of slowing down, the value of hitting pause and zooming out. And by the way, on a personal basis, this also has to do with the role of intuition. So there's so much great neuroscience experimentation going on right now that connects the dots between intuition, the vagus nerves, and they call it interoceptive awareness, and strategic rational decision making. The two are linked. So there's neuroscience basis that we could go into. There's case studies, and then there's the reflective moment to really try to understand if we continue down this path, what's at stake.
I love the distinction between rigor and rigid. I'm going to borrow that.
Sure.
Because I see lots of both. And the funny thing is that people who are rigid think that they're being rigorous, and they're not.
They're not.
I love that distinction. Go ahead.
Yes.
Hey, you end the book talking about cultivating that creativity inside organizations and culture. What's a quick way to get there?
Well, two ways. We've already talked about redesigning meetings, right? That is the original artifact of organizational culture. One way to start is to do what a company like Zapier has done. They had a time off week where they saw productivity spike afterwards. They had a moratorium on meetings. But the other thing to do is to do some experimentation with KPIs, and emphasis on the word experiment. I am not advocating for people to throw the baby out the bathwater, to totally change their KPIs and the ways that they work. Culture change is slow, right? But to run experiments. And so one way to think about that is to, for example, if you run a collaborative innovation sprint, one new KPI is to track the before and after sorts of levels of engagement with clients, or acquisition of sales, or increase in market share due to some sort of prototype that's been launched, to explore KPIs in terms of sabbatical, again, before and after, and the type of additive work and content that employees bring. It's so interesting how counterintuitive this macro management way of leading is. It actually leads to more committed and devoted employees because of the trust that's been built. But KPIs is a big part of what I spend a lot of time discussing at the end of the book.
Right. Getting the right KPIs in place is important. We're here with Natalie Nixon, author of Motor, Move, Think, Rest, Redefine Productivity and Our Relationship with Time. I have a really bad relationship and contentious one, but we'll work on it. Hey, get the book on Amazon. Thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's awesome. Lots of nuggets of wisdom there. Rigidity and rigor. Okay, again, this is our cleanup hitter spot. This is where we bring a guest typically, and the guest hits a home run, brings the whole thing home for us. And it's also places where we bring best-selling authors. Today, it's my privilege to introduce Henry King. He's the co-author of the best-selling book, Boundless, that came out exactly 2 years ago, September 2023, and his new book, Autonomous, Why the Fittest Businesses Embrace AI-First Strategies in Digital Labor. Henry is an innovation and transformation leader and author of, again, best-selling book, Boundless, A New Mindset for Unlimited Business Success. Henry is a former CIO with over 35 years of consulting executive experience, both in US and internationally, with expertise in innovation, design thinking, and information technology. He's been published in Fast Company, HuffPost, ZDNet, Business Week. He studied, Ray, you would think, he's like a machine learning by degree. He studied classics at Oxford University and has taught postgraduate innovation and design classes at School of Art, Institute of Chicago, and Institute of Design. There are 80,000 people at Salesforce, amazing people at Salesforce. There's only one person I have a standing meeting with, and that's Henry. And that's been a practice I've had, and I've been quite rigorous about it for the last 7 years. And that's Henry. He's one of the smartest people I've ever worked with. Welcome, Henry, to DisrupTV.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ray. It's great to be here.
We're excited to have you here. I'm actually interviewing both of you. I'm not going to let Vala get away with that. So I'm going to have to ask both of you guys, why did you write Autonomous? You had an amazing book, Boundless. And of course, that was published in 2023. My question is, how do we go from Boundless to Autonomous? So what was the thinking and the structure behind it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, I assume that a lot of your viewers won't really kind of be familiar with Boundless necessarily. So, just as a quick recap on that, Boundless came from two observations that we made, none of which were world-breaking. But the first, quite simply, was silos are everywhere, right? They're across all industries. Everyone that we've talked to, whether it was in finance or whether it was in technology, whether it's in retail or agriculture or education, everyone hates silos, and yet they are everywhere.
They're everywhere.
And we don't seem to be able to get rid of them. And so the question is, or the assumption must be, in that case, they must work for at least someone. Because if they didn't, they would be got rid of. So the question is, who do they work for? Why do they still exist? But are they as harmful as everyone actually thinks they are? And if so, what might an alternative look like? What might it mean to actually have a completely anti-siloed organization? And so what we learned was the silos do in fact work. They're very, very successful, and they've been successful for hundreds, if not thousands of years, but they only work for the people who run them, who organize them, often at the expense of everyone else who needs the resources that they're so busily accumulating and protecting. And so we asked ourselves, what would it look like to be unsiloed? And that's where the Boundless organization came out. And the Boundless organization has 7 principles. One of the principles is autonomy. So autonomy for the resources, whether those are employees, whether they're customers, whether they're raw materials, whether it's data, or whatever it happens to be, autonomy is one of those anti-siloed principles. And so Autonomous became basically the second book in, if you will, the Boundless series, and we hope that there will be others.
I don't think when we were writing Boundless, we thought that the autonomy was going to be the next book, but something happened, and I'm going to. But before I get to the question, my first question is, how is it working with me?
Well, of course, it's
I can ask both of you, and I'm sure I would get very interesting answers, but our audience doesn't want to know. Okay, let me get to the serious question.
Someday on Entertainment Tonight.
You spent 2 years researching post-boundless. What does it mean to be boundless in an AI-powered economy? And you suggested in the book Autonomous, which can be pre-ordered now, it's available October 7th, that the fittest companies, and you were very specific on the word fittest economies are autonomous companies. What's an autonomous company? What's an autonomous business?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'll skip over the fittest part because that's a kind of a conversation, I think, all of its own. But an autonomous business is a company or a business that embraces AI-first strategies and digital labor and redesigns itself in order to really take advantage of those new capabilities. And the key word there really is embrace. Even though it's easy to start using AI in small ways, and lots of companies, of course, are already doing so, what we see is that there is a point at which leaders have to take, as we like to say in the book, right? They have to take their hands off the steering wheel. And that's where the real opportunity of AI and autonomy exists. It's giving up operational autonomy to AI over the longer term. This is not going to happen immediately, of course, but handing over operational autonomy such that humans can keep, and back to Mike and Natalie's words, we can keep mission autonomy. So that's the goal, for humans to have mission autonomy and give operational autonomy over to the AI, because that is where we get the best out of humans, is where we get the best out of technology. So
it sounds like, I'm going to ask both of you guys, it sounds like we're getting to a level of what we call situational awareness, right? We've gone from the augmentation to the acceleration to the automation to these agents, and now we're in autonomous systems. Is that where you're kind of headed in this conversation?
Well, that's certainly one of the places that we're going on for sure. Yeah. So our sense is that an autonomous machine, whether that is an autonomous car, or whether it's a factory that makes autonomous cars, or whether it's an autonomous company itself, all of these autonomous machines and autonomous companies, they need to have not only situational awareness, but they also have to have horizontal awareness, right? So they need to be able to see not only is what is happening right there, right in their context, right in their domain in front of them, that they need to respond to immediately, but they also need to be looking out onto the horizon to events that are going to happen. They're not going to happen immediately, but they're going to happen. And so, yeah, absolutely, Ray. Situational and horizontal awareness is absolutely a key capability for businesses going forward.
You mentioned a car. So you referenced physical AI. And you also talked about the analogy of letting go of the wheel. And if you're in a cyber cab today, or you're in an Amazon Zoox, there is no steering wheel. Give us some real tangible examples of physical AI and how the innovation trends there we'll see in business.
Yeah. So we use the physical AI, particularly the autonomous car, but not just the autonomous car. We talk about other autonomous machines as well. But we use it partially as an analogy, which is, when we think about AI and autonomy, it still has the sense of something kind of magical, and it's a little bit theoretical and a little bit science fiction and a little bit scary. But when we look at the autonomous car, it's already right here. It's right in front of us. Probably a lot of your viewers, have a Tesla, or they have a Lucid, or they have, another car with a certain level of autonomous capabilities in it. So we're familiar with the idea of technology helping us, enabling us, assisting us in driving cars. Cruise control, for instance, has been around for a very long time. It was invented in its current form by a blind Ralph Teeter, an American engineer, and he invented it in 1948, and it was adopted by Chrysler and Cadillac in 1950. So that's been around for a very long time. And we're familiar with cruise control, we're familiar with lane guidance, we're familiar with collision detection and collision avoidance. And all of these things, right, are right in front of us. We're using them every day. So as an analogy, we can ask questions like, well, what happens if you take your hands off the steering wheel? What does it mean for the car to drive itself? What does that do to the design of the car? Are there implications for the design of roads and the design of cities, the design of society even, at a larger point? So we can ask these questions as analogies, and then we can analogize out of that to businesses. So that's one way in which physical AI really helps. I think the other thing that we've really kind of talked about in autonomous is that our sense is that these new businesses need to start having the same characteristics as these cars themselves, right? They need to be connected. They need to be connected to their business partners. They need to be connected to their customers. They need to be connected to their communities. They need to be software driven. So they're not just like hardware, but software driven. They need to be learning. They need to be continuously improving. Right, so all of these things that we understand from autonomous machines, like the autonomous car, these are the characteristics that they have, and we believe that the autonomous business will have those same characteristics.
You've got tenets to autonomous businesses. That's in your last chapter. I believe there's 10 of them. Vala, what's your favorite? Henry, what's your favorite?
Oh, Val, you go first.
Favorite. The more I think about the operating system of autonomous fighter jets or vehicles or cars, the more I appreciate the machine scale SUDA operating operating system, which is different than UDA. I think most of us are familiar with UDA, but with SUDA, just the ability to sense, understand, decide, and act, and do that in real time, where the delta time from sensing to acting is converging to zero. And you need to have large ingestion capabilities, but you also have to be proactively looking for signals. When you look at a Waymo, it has 13 cameras, it has 6 LiDAR, it has 6 radar, it has extended audio receivers, it has software mapping capabilities, it has computing at the edge. All of that ingestion capabilities based on output, millions of pulses through laser or millimeter wave frequency with radar, and the cameras that are working 360 around the vehicle. So that machine scale ability to ingest, analyze, decide, and act, and we're seeing that with agents. So to me, I think if you don't have MSUDA, machine scale, sense, understand, decide, and act, you're not an autonomous business. You're not a self-driving business. And that's situational. That's situational and horizontal. The car in front of you stops, you stop. But if you're in stop and go traffic and you're going to be late for your meeting, the car decides to take a different route. So not only understands it has contextual understanding of the immediate, it has understanding of what success looks like for the stakeholder, the passenger, and it makes decisions that are, again, beyond just what's in front of you. So to me, the dimensionality of SUDA is super important, and I don't think you can be an autonomous business without it. Henry.
So I agree with all of that. And I think that one of the things that SUDA gives you, or machine SUDA gives you, that you can't get from a kind of a conventional business, is this ability to really design for performance rather than stability. And so that's the tenet all around inherent instability. And that's not it's not a conventional thought, and it's not a kind of an easy thought. So perhaps
we argued about this for a year.
We argued about this for at least a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because the thesis was designed for inherent instability. And who do you want to be in front of business leaders and say designed for instability? No. But let Henry. Good.
Yeah. So instability. It sounds strange, maybe, but at its core, instability is simply the instability of a machine is simply its tendency to fall over if it's not being kind of managed directly, right? So think of a bicycle, right? So a bicycle will just, if you're not riding it at rest, it'll just fall over unless you prop it up or you use a kickstand or you hold on to it or you put it up against a fence or a wall or something. So a bicycle is inherently unstable at rest. Interestingly, when you're riding it, the faster you go, the more stable it gets, right? So you can freewheel for quite a while without worrying about falling over. But finally, it'll get to a stop, and at that point, it'll fall over. So that's instability that's inherent instability in one axis. Now imagine you're an aeroplane, right?
An F-117 stealth bomber.
A stealth bomber.
Wow.
Right? That's inherently unstable in 3 axes. So in pitch, in roll,
Yep.
and in yaw.
Yep.
Right? So it has the tendency, and it has the, not desire, that's the wrong word for a technological system, but it has the inherent likelihood of just falling out of the sky. And so you can't actually it's impossible for a human to actually fly and control inherently unstable plane. But with the advent of fly-by-wire, all of a sudden you have these computerized systems who are now able to take thousands of signals every second and make very fine adjustments to all the control surfaces of the plane. And that gives you stability for free. It gives you, and you've given the machinery operational autonomy such that you, as a pilot, can then focus on your mission. Again, it's
the birth of the
positional
Intelligent
autonomy.
Flight Control System, the IFCS. Yeah.
Right. And so the learning from that is that actually, if you want to design for performance, what you have to do is you have to ingest, as Vala was saying, as much data as you possibly can all of the time. You have to be comfortable with drinking from the fire hose, as the expression goes, all of the time. But businesses are not very good at that, and they never have been good at that. So what they actually do is they optimize for stability rather than performance. They close down all of the data. That's why we only do annual strategies. That's why we only do annual planning, right? And
It's
that's
called
why
the Pareto frontier. So the inverse relationship of performance and stability. High performance, low stability. Low performance, high stability. But again, in an autonomous business, you can now, with agents, get into the autonomous zone where it's no longer performance or stability. It's now performance and stability. A month ago at Salesforce Connection Conference, we said, say goodbye to do not reply to email. You no longer have to throttle back, because we would send 1 million emails to everyone, but we couldn't respond to it. So you always had do not reply to email. Now agents are replying to email. So
unstable non-performance.
Yeah. So instead of throttling back and not having an ability to have a conversation, you now took what was forever a unidirectional push to now push and pull. And that's a perfect example of assigning agents to take care of the stability function and allowing your humans to think about more creative campaigns and the overall performance of converting leads to opportunities to actual closed-won business. So anyway, believe you me, Henry and I, a year argument whether this should make it to the book, and eventually Henry was able to convince me, yeah, this is a big idea.
This is a big idea, and if you haven't got a chance, please order it. Autonomous, it's available now. And of course, if you're going to you're speaking on these, right, Henry, Val? What are you talking about? Autonomous.
We're actually Henry and I are co-presenting. We're delivering a keynote at Arizona State University event October 24th. We've got about 1,000 folks in the audience. Lev Gonick, the president, invited us to speak, and we have several knock on wood opportunities to continue to talk about autonomous. And maybe breaking news here, and I didn't talk to Henry about this, we're actually working on a follow-up. So we're not pausing. We expect the next book to be out sometime next year around this time. So, but stay tuned for that. Let's focus on, let's rest.
You might have to do a writing sabbatical and apply the motor framework here, Well, this is wonderful. Henry, thanks for being back here, and I really appreciate it. Henry King, co-author with Vala Afshar on the new book, Autonomous, Why the fittest businesses embrace AI-first strategies and digital labor. Get it now. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Henry.
Thanks, both.
Thank you. Thanks. Cheers.
I was trying to interview you, man. No, just kidding.
Yeah, when you have Henry there, you've got one of the smartest people I know. So,
No, I totally get it. I totally get it.
I tell you, this was my favorite hour of the week, as it is every week. How about you? Can you recap lessons learned from 3 extraordinary guests?
Really hard, but if you try, we'll do it very simply. I think if you talk to Mike Hayes, I think you're realizing that the way we operate is going to have to change. When you're mission driven, a lot of it starts with who, not what, who. And I think the advice that he has is something very important is really go back and figure out, you're going to figure out what that new operating model is going to be for you. And I think that's really what is going to change you, the teams, and how you actually work, taking those experiences he put together from everywhere, from VMware to his current experience at Insight Partners, and of course, his experience in the military. Natalie actually helped us really think about what's next, right, in terms of humanity. One way to retitle the way we look at it is, what will humans be like in an age of AI? And if you think about the mission, the purpose, and what we do, it's going to change, right? And we really have to think about that motor framework, because that motor framework is going to give us an ability to rethink, reinvent, and create and capture the creativity side of what we do. And of course, if you're reading Autonomous, you know that digital labor is here, AI first strategies are coming. And for me, it's really about how do we get to machine scale business OS. That's going to be one aspect of it. And if I put it all together, we'll be mission driven. We'll have some sense of mission purpose, some sense of heart, and we'll be running these things so we can go spend time doing the things we really love doing. So there you go, Vala.
You're better than Grok or Claude or the latest ChatGPT. Your summarizations are amazing. It gives us hope for humanity that we can still summarize.
For now.
For now. Okay. We've actually,
get the books. So.
Get the books. We've actually last show, we crossed 1,400 interviews. So it's been 10 years of us interviewing extraordinary people on our show. And we continue to encourage you to suggest guests to be on our show. Next week, we have Steve Lucas, CEO of Boomi. He's a terrific storyteller, a big brain, really charismatic CEO, and a technologist. Mark Crowley, co-author of The Power of, I'm sorry, my thing just, The Power of Employee Well-Being, Move Beyond Engagement to Build Flourishing Teams. And we have Wendy Lipton-Dibner, co-author of What Matters Most, How Leaders Build Impassioned Engagement, Unrivaled Loyalty, and Boundless Growth by measuring real world impact. I like the book because it has boundless in the subtitle. So
I know, look at that. So we're going there. So
everyone, if it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Hey guys. Bye-bye.